Side. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajanandana. Yashodanandana Brajajanandana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. समाज भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Swami To Bhakti Vrinda ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Swami To Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the Assembly Lord. All glories to the Assembly. Thank you very much.
Krishna Mother.
Imagine you had invested in Google, Tesla, or Bitcoin back in 2009. Here's
Hare Krishna, Acyuta Gopi. My humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We are surviving by your mercy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming to Africa today. So we normally Prabhupada chant Radha Madhava.
Yeah.
And then we put the verse on the screen. Then you can start. You can just chant the pranams. Then you can start the class.
Sure. Thank you.
Do you want to record?
What's that?
Would you like to record the class on your laptop?
Yeah, sure. Let's record it.
Okay, I'll give you hosts so that you can record right away. Now you can record, please.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I put the verse on the screen, so we can start.
Right. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 40. Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpito Rumana Kritam Anukritavatya Unmadhanda Prakritim Agan Kilayasya Gopavadvaha. Translation. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Brajadham, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By intense ecstasy and loving service, the damsels of Brajbhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by dancing with him on an equal level, embracing him in nuptial love, smiling at him in joke, and looking at him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishma Dev, but the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as a chariot driver, but the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. And therefore Bhishma Dev has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis, who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. The gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sayujya liberation of the impersonalist. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated, for the interests of the lover and the beloved become identical. Once again, this beautiful translation. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Brajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. So this wonderful and beautiful verse comes within the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it gives us a really beautiful idea of how community can work. Gives us an idea of what we are striving for when we look for spiritual companions. It also gives us an idea of the inner battlefield, of an external battlefield. Bhishma was on an external battlefield, but we also have an internal battlefield, right? Which, of course, is the mind, which Sri Krishna himself says can be our best friend or worst enemy, sometimes both at the same time. But this wonderful verse is a part of one of my favorite chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a chapter that winds up being read often because whenever I have a resolution in my life, or as we come upon this month of Bhadra and you think Bhadra Purnima is coming, right? This wonderful Purnima to honor Srimad Bhagavatam, and you have this resolution, I want to do something really nice with my life and with my spiritual life. And then you think, okay, I'll start reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So this first canto and these first few chapters, I feel like they get read a lot. And then no matter where you leave off, once the resolution comes, or New Year's comes, or Gaur Purnima, or Bhadra Purnima, you think, okay, I'm going to do it again. So then we start again with the first canto. So I feel like this is a chapter that gets read quite often. And not only then, but also thinking about during Kartik. Right? We have the Bhishma Panchak, those last few days of Kartik, where we're meditating on the life of Bhishma. Why? Why? For all intents and purposes, right? Like for looking at this as a whole, Bhishma was on the wrong side. Shouldn't it be like it's black and white, cut and dry? Bhishma was on the opposite side. But this is our Krishna. This is our Krishna ready to cheat, break promises, make the impossible very, very possible for people who were on the wrong side, which could be all of us. All of us are seemingly on the wrong side of this cosmic life. We decided that there was too much fun that Krishna was having. We looked and we said, you know, this whole worship and adoration thing looks really amazing. Let's try it. Just a little. And so we find ourselves on the wrong side of devotion, on the wrong side of bhakti. Now yearning to give our love and adoration somewhere, but it's not as good when we give all that love and adoration to ourselves. Modern psychology modern studies of the mind and of ourselves tell us that, you know what? You should be perfectly satisfied and happy, giving all that love that you give out to everybody else to yourself. And one of the biggest struggles that we see is that people have a hard time loving themselves. People have a hard time giving all that love back to themselves. So, like, why? Even if we look at Krishna Lila, even if we look at this beautiful verse that Bhishma Dev is now meditating on, the whole purpose of the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the whole purposes. The wonderful thing about Krishna is you can have several whole purposes, and somehow it's never completely the whole purpose. So one of the whole purposes of the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is because Krishna looks and he says, these gopis, Srimati Radharani, they're giving all of their love, all of it, to me. And I don't get it. Radharani fondly often looks at Krishna and says, of course you don't get it. You are the object of all of our affection. Of course you won't understand it. It's not the same. It's not the same when you're giving all of that love to yourself. You don't quite understand it. But when there's somebody else who loves you unconditionally for no reason, that starts to make a difference. And ultimately, it's what we keep looking for. And ultimately, it's what all of these therapists and psychologists and all of these people are telling us. Okay, wait. Ultimately, the key to your issue is that you keep looking for this unconditional love outside. You keep looking for somebody to love you unconditionally. But the key is to look inward. Part of that key is, of course, to realize that, okay, I've been giving all of this attention outward to all of the wrong people, things, all of the wrong subjects, objects. But what am I really looking for? There's something inward that I should be focusing on. But is it just me? And if it's me, what's the big deal? Because we're with ourselves all the time. Some people have to take classes and classes and classes, and they have to take loads of therapeutic sessions just to be able to accept the wonderful things about themselves. But what is it? There's something deeper. Because I can say, I love my hair this way, I love the way my nose is shaped, but tomorrow that can all be subject to change. And then what do we have? So there's something else. And if it's just the soul, then yeah, but what makes that soul so amazing? It's our connection. There's got to be a connection to something so much greater, so much more amazing. There's an entire section of Bhagavad Gita where Sri Krishna expounds upon the amazing qualities of the soul. But why? Why is this soul so amazing? Because we're connected to Krishna. Part and parcel of Krishna, which means that Krishna has now wonderfully given all of the qualities that we think are so incredible in minute form, little tiny concentrations, bite-sized pieces. But that's what makes it so amazing. All of those things that we've been looking for, someone who is strong, handsome, or beautiful, opulent, knowledgeable, full of auspiciousness, right? All 6 opulences, they now find in some variation and minute quantity, they find themselves within the characteristics of our souls. But we still have a problem. Giving all that love doesn't quite feel the same when you give it to yourself. Radharani tells Krishna himself, you won't understand it like I understand it. When you get to dive headfirst, completely, into giving every iota of that love to somebody else, then maybe. Krishna is so intensely intrigued by this prospect that he now has to go and try and figure it out himself. Fine, he says. I'm a thief. I'll do what thieves do best. I will plunder the contents of your heart, where all of that treasure that you say you have is stored. And I'll find out what makes loving this other person so amazing. I'll find out what this meditation on the Supreme Person, what's so amazing about it. And he does, in an unfathomable way. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not half step. He does not go halfway. Right? Go big or go home. He goes completely headfirst into the loving aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Completely. Not only for himself, but he gives it to everybody else. Not only will I take all of the treasure present within the heart of the person who can love the Supreme the absolute most, but once I've got all the treasure, I'll make sure that everyone else has it also. And then Mahaprabhu goes completely almost mad in ecstasy, which we have in this verse. Right? If we look at the transliteration, we have Unmada Anda, gone mad in ecstasy. Like this is the goal. To go completely dive headfirst into absolutely loving someone, and not the way we think of it now with limited people, with limited characteristics. And then we do this thing where everybody now is toxic, or everybody has this, like, you know, we give all of these diagnoses. We all become therapists and psychologists of our own lives. And then we put all of these titles and labels on things. But no, not now. Now, when we go headfirst into loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what do we get? We get the most absolute, unconditional, unending, unlimited reciprocation, which I love. If we look at this entire chapter, this 9th chapter, this passing of Bhishma Dev, the glories of Bhishma Dev, this is a study of reciprocation. Bhishma Dev, as we said, seemingly was on the wrong side. Why should Krishna be so involved with him? Because no matter what, there's a devotee in there. No matter what. Bhishma looks like he's on the wrong side, but this is not the beginning of Bhishma's story. Just verses before, he is glorified as, O best of the Vasus. He was a great sage. One of the greatest. So this, what we see, this small snapshot, is not the beginning of Bhishma Dev's story. We are in the middle of what my brother loves to call a karmic conversation, which I love that phrase. And if you are a parent, or if you have been in charge of anything, you get to see these karmic conversations on a smaller scale. You see one child walks up to the other child and slaps the child in the face. Or one coworker has a huge argument with another coworker, And we start to think, hey, that's not right. What's happening? This is not okay. What we missed was everything that happened before. We're not privy to everything that happened before. So whether the first child goes and pulls the hair of the other child and says all kinds of mean things, which leads up to this slap that we saw, we miss all of that. But if we judge it just based on what we've seen, that child was wrong for slapping the other one. And then we think we have to do some disciplinary action. But my mother, the first thing she would ask, understanding Srimad Bhagavatam, understanding Bhagavad Gita and karma, which sometimes when I was growing up, I used to think one of the worst things that they could have done was they gave my mom Krishna consciousness, because that's how she was going to parent, from a Krishna conscious standpoint. So if you think me as the youngest of 4 siblings, I might often think, well, this happened to me and now I feel terrible about it. And now I'm crying. I'm going to go tell my mom. My mom, first question she would ask is, well, what did you do? Well, how is this fair? I've gone to tell on my other sibling. And now the first question is, what responsibility did I have in all of this? None. I'm faultless, of course. But she would ask, what did you do? The answer can't ever just be nothing. Sometimes on a rare occasion, I would feel so justified and vindicated and say, absolutely nothing. Like, you did nothing to provoke your sibling? So this is the karmic conversation. And my mom, being conscious of it, that's the first question she would ask. Even now, if I have a problem or I have a hard time, the first question she asks is, but what responsibility did we play? Like, what part did we play in all of this? What responsibility can I take? Sometimes I think, oh, Mom, can't we just say I'm perfect? The world is wrong. And let's just wallow in that for a second. But she's often trying to encourage us to really look at things from a spiritual standpoint, encouraging me to be a spiritual warrior, which means actively looking at, okay, what happened? What did I do? As uncomfortable as it is. Bhishma Dev looks at all aspects of his life, even the uncomfortable parts. On a bed of arrows, at the end of his life, he's really examining everything, and he's lived a long time, seeing generations. There are Ekadashi stories where it says that he would speak with Pandu, he would speak with Vidura, and they would talk about the upcoming appearance of an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhishma knew. He wasn't ignorant of the fact of who Krishna was, why he was there, and what was happening. There are some times when then Bhishma says he has so many duties and responsibilities to tend to. And we can find ourselves reading Mahabharata, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Bhagavad Gita, and easily condemning these personalities. Isn't it? It's so easy to read these epics, these histories, and look at them and go, that's where you went wrong. That was your prime mistake. Okay, but what about us? Where was our prime mistake? Where did we go wrong? How many times have we said, well, I have this responsibility and this responsibility and this responsibility, and I'll figure out my Krishna consciousness next month. And we have justifications for it, right? Next month, my schedule will be freer. Next month, everything will be in line. In fact, next month, there will be a host of spiritually charged days. I'll figure it out then. I'll figure out my sadhana then. Tomorrow's another day. I'll get my 16 done then. I'll get my 16 rounds over with then. How many times has that been our prime mistake? Have we sat on the wrong side? Have we said, I have an obligation to so many other different things? Does this mean that we're forsaken? No. The wonderful thing about this entire chapter is that it doesn't mean that we're forsaken. Bhishma could have been said to have taken not one misstep, not two missteps, but so many missteps. So many times. He's done so many different things. Arguing with Krishna. Challenging Arjuna. And Bhishma expounds on this earlier within this chapter. Some of my favorite verses. He says, I attacked your devotee. And he's almost proud of it. I attacked your devotee. I had a plan in mind. I was either going to kill him or you were going to take some definitive action. In the end, Krishna decides to take some definitive action, even having promised that he wouldn't fight. Promised. Political promise. Krishna says, in order to be fair for both sides, I won't fight. I'll drive a chariot, but my entire army can go on to the other side, no problem. But now, when faced with protecting the life of his best friend, his cousin brother, or keeping that political promise, Krishna's decision is made in a heartbeat. It's nothing for him. Jumps off the chariot. And in some versions of Mahabharata, it is said that this is not the first time he does this. Jumps off the chariot, yells at Arjuna, looks angrily towards Bhishma, and takes off. Strides across a battlefield, picks up a broken chariot wheel along the way, hurling it above his head, heroically, might I add, ready to take action against Bhishma. And Bhishma is overjoyed. This is Bhishma. We could say, well, that was a misstep, don't you think? But no, Bhishma says, this is what I've been waiting for my entire life. This scene, seeing this wonderful form of Krishna in front of me on the battlefield, accepting my service. Bhishma has taken it as a service to fight with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he forever offers prayers to Krishna for accepting his service. I shot him with arrows. Those arrows made marks on him. He seems decorated with those marks. They appear like shining jewels and ornaments and flowers strewn across the body of Shri Krishna. Bhishma loves these moments so much that he remembers every iota, every detail. He says he dropped his yellow chadar on the battlefield. Now this chadar is dragging behind him. He doesn't realize it, but I did. Who would have the presence of mind? Millions of soldiers all around on a chariot, right? There's like intense music going on in the background. There's dust flying everywhere from the hooves of hundreds of thousands of animals and horses and elephants and foot soldiers, all of these things. Who would have the presence of mind to remember exactly how Krishna looked? And to be able to recall it at the most pivotal moment in our lives. Bhishma's meditated on this. This is not a moment that was there and then gone. This moment happened, and then Bhishma locked it up tight within his heart. These are our interactions with Sri Krishna. How many interactions have we committed to memory? How many times have we thought, wow, I was saved by Krishna. I don't know what was going to happen or what was meant to happen, but I was really honestly saved by Krishna. And then have we taken that memory and come and really memorized it, meditated on it, and chanted with affection and devotion that, you know what, even if it never happens again, my Krishna created a miracle in my life and he saved me. Even if it's something as simple as I was miserable and then I found Krishna consciousness. Do we remember what it was like when we first started chanting? These are the things that we can commit to memory. This is what Bhishma is now remembering in the last moments of his life. These are his treasures. Bhishma was wealthy, always. He was celestially born. And then he was taken to the heavenly planets to receive education by the gods themselves. He never, ever had to live in poverty. Even giving up the kingdom, he was still honored as one of the greatest political figures of all time. He was known as a great warrior. Wherever he went, people were willing to give him wealth and their kingdoms. He wouldn't take it on his own behalf, but they were still willing to give it. No problem. He would rule as a figurehead while the different princes of the Kuru dynasty were growing up. And so many kings and so many different province rulers would come. We just want to be under your protection. This was a man that had more wealth than we can even imagine. But at the end of his life, what are his treasures? His memories of his interactions with Krishna. He says that when he saw Krishna at the Rajasuya Yagya, he says that is a memory that he would meditate on from that day throughout the rest of his life. That was the memory that would keep him strong. The memory of Krishna exhibiting his wonderful transcendental nature at the Rajasuya Yagya. Killing Shishupal, coronating Yudhishthir, being honored by all of the kings of the world. These are his memories. These are his treasured things. Have we done the same? Do we have treasured memories with Krishna? Because we all do. It's a matter of perspective. How are we looking at it? Are we looking at those times where I had my home deities and I just sat one day and we chanted with our home deities? Whether we're in the temple with deities, we're at home, Krishna is completely and fully manifest. If we believe it. Even if we don't believe it, he's completely and fully manifest. But if we believe it, he shows himself so much more. So as we find ourselves on this battlefield of life, within this battlefield of the mind, what are we choosing to focus on? Can we bring our consciousness back time and time again to the life of Bhishma Dev, to the lessons of Bhishma, whose prime example was, let me just remember, let me fix my mind on the beautiful pastimes of Sri Krishna. There's such a beautiful change in this chapter. Beginning of the chapter, he's in grandfather mode, elder of the entire society, there to give help. And then there's a switch. He says, I've said everything that I can say to you. He's told Yudhishthira all that he can tell him. And now with his last example, what does he want? Let me now fix my mind upon the beautiful form of Sri Krishna, who has appeared before me out of his own sweet will, out of his own kindness. I can't make him do anything. In fact, I was doing all the wrong things, supporting all the wrong people, thinking that my vow and my promise to stand by this kingdom was all in all. And still, Krishna, knowing my internal desire to simply fix my attention upon him at the end of my life, he brought Yudhishthira. Not only does he bring Yudhishthira, but he honors Bhishma. Says, beginning of the chapter, Krishna arrives with Yudhishthira, all of the Pandavas, and he bows down to him. This purport, Srila Prabhupada aptly states that Krishna loves glorifying his devotee. Loves it even more than receiving the attention himself. Right? That also goes back to what we said earlier. Doesn't feel the same when all the attention is just fixed on you. Even if you give the attention. I've had to really kind of put that in perspective for myself. And if you've never done this, it's actually a really very cool exercise. Modern therapists and philosophers are saying it's really good to stand in front of a mirror and say, I love myself. That can be really difficult at first. And I wanted to figure out why. If I'm having difficulty saying I love myself, then all of this like love that I think everybody else should give me is going to find a difficult way getting in. But also I had to examine, okay, well, first, why is it difficult for me to say this? And then second, why am I sitting there in the mirror saying that I love myself? And that kind of gets tiring after a while. And I felt like I got bored within the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I had to figure out like, okay, what's a good reason? You don't need a reason to love yourself. And I was like, but that's not good enough. I'm a person who asks why a lot, especially to myself. So I'm like, but that's not a good enough reason. Okay, why? Why? And finally, I said, wait a second. I love me because Krishna has never needed a reason to love me. Krishna has never needed a reason to stick with me. Krishna has never needed a reason to stay. Krishna has never said, well, look, I'll be with you as Paramatma in the heart, but you've really got to do the right thing. One wrong move and I'm gone. Paramatma has never left. So I had to really look at myself in the mirror and say, wait a second. I love me, not just this one that's like a nice brown color and has been given Krishna consciousness from birth. Like not just that one. But there's a me that this Paramatma, this Krishna has said, you know what? You and I, we are eternally like peanut butter and jelly. We are eternally a team. We go together eternally. Never, ever, ever will there be a time when I will abandon you. And I said, that I love. That's one amazing reason for me to love my soul and never ever stop loving it, because Krishna decided that it was worthy of all of that attention and affection. And he decided it not only for me, but for everybody. Every living entity. Even the ones that we don't agree with this lifetime. Even the ones that we severely dislike this lifetime. There's a soul that Krishna said, everybody else might hate you, but I'll still be here. Even if you never speak to me. And there are some times when we decide we just never speak to Krishna. If anybody in any relationship, friend, family, any romantic relationship, if anyone treated me like that, I would not have the tolerance to just say, but I'm going to stay. Not only am I going to stay, but the minute you turn your attention toward me, the minute you call for me, I'll be there in a heartbeat. Giving you everything I've gotten more: assistance, love, affection, knowledge, guidance, anything you need, I'll be there. There are some times when it looked as though Bhishma disagreed with Krishna. There were some times it looked like where Bhishma did nothing to help the Pandavas. These wonderful devotees. There have been so many actions where we think, I just cannot fathom what is going through the mind of this person. There are some times when we look from the outside and we absolutely know that person is wrong. And Krishna says, it's okay. I will honor that person. I've decided to honor and respect that person. That puts us in a quandary, doesn't it? Because then what do we do? What do we do when we look and all of the knowledge that we have and don't have? And we look and we say, oh, but that person's completely wrong. And now Krishna's decided to honor and love and to have affection for that person. Duryodhana, in honor of Balaram Jayanti, he did everything wrong. It was like his main goal in life to do as many things wrong. He was often a good king, very, very wealthy, extremely powerful. But we can all agree he did some wrong things. And then Lord Balaram, our Adi Guru, likes to honor and respect him. What is this? Why? It doesn't make any sense. Except for to understand that we are in the middle of a karmic conversation. This Duryodhana is an expansion of Kali. This same Duryodhana, who is an expansion of Kali, also has an eternal position in the service of Lord Anantadev. And when Anantashesh says, okay, guys, I'm going. My Lord needs me. All of the associates of Anantashesh say in different forms, well, I want to go too. This Kali, who has a position there within the court of Anantashesh, looks and says, but I want to go. How can I live without you? Lord Anantashesh, merciful, unlimited, expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, looks at this Kali and says, no problem. You come as Duryodhana, and I'll be your friend. This is the cosmic version of my mom's, okay, now what did you do? What happened before? What's the full story? So all of these wrong moves that we're looking, of course, we don't want to condone them because it created so many offenses to so many devotees. So we see that there are repercussions. There are reactions that come upon those that perform all of these horrible atrocities towards devotees. But at the same token, we have to look at it and understand Krishna's going to love this person. At the end of the day, Krishna's going to love this person. And who knows? Sri Balaram might decide that he wants to have the most compassion on this person. Right? We see this not only with Lord Balaram, but also with Sri Nityananda Prabhu. He might decide to have the most compassion on that most fallen person and then decide that he's going to love them. Can we stop Krishna? Is there any way anyone can say to Nityananda Prabhu, you know what? I know you're God and all, but you should really protect yourself. Even Lord Chaitanya couldn't do that for Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda gets hit in the head. All of the devotees are in an uproar. How can this happen? Lord Nityananda has to be careful that his blood doesn't even touch the earth, because if it does, he's the person that upholds all the material creations. It would cause cataclysmic, horrible, dire consequences. So now he has to be careful to protect those around him, but also now he's looking at Jagai Madai. Lord Chaitanya is ready to completely destroy him, both of them. Jagai Madai together, because they were a package deal. Lord Nityananda decides, no, wait. My Lord, I'm fine. Who can cause any harm to me, actually? But furthermore, look at these two. If you can make them believers, what will be said for the rest of humanity? If they can't be saved, then no one can. But if you can make them believers, then humanity can be saved at large. All of these people that we look at and we think, there's no saving them. They shouldn't. They can't. That's when Lord Balaram and Lord Nityananda take it as a personal challenge. Here, hold my Varuni. I'll fix it. And this is when the Lord decides to take personal action. Sometimes for the person involved, that personal action is quite uncomfortable. But the Lord doesn't forsake anybody. So whether we're looking at the world at large, or we're even looking in our community, and we see so many things happening and so many people that we know, or we think we know, right? We think we know this is wrong, this is outrageous, they should eradicate this whole thing. I often find myself so glad that I am not in a managerial position, because I don't have to make those decisions. I don't have to do any of that. I do not envy anybody in a management position their job. And in fact, all my respects go out to them, because I don't have to make those decisions. I get to sit back and say, man, that's tough. But you know what? Lord Krishna and Nityananda, they're not gonna forsake that person, no matter how wrong I think they are. And then I get to say, I get to practice my Krishna consciousness over here, away from them. They get to practice their Krishna consciousness over there. And then I get to meditate, like Bhishma Dev, on the glories of my Lord. Like, I wonder how Krishna is going to work that out. That's going to be real interesting for everybody involved. But I get to like divorce myself from the situation. Those in management have to stick around and somehow be instruments in figuring it out. Right? This is what Yudhishthira had the problem with. At the beginning of this chapter and at the end of the last chapter, Yudhishthira, they say he is devastated. He's depressed. He's completely in a state of mind boggling, like he cannot figure this out. He's looking around and saying, Srila Prabhupada often says 600 million. Sometimes I was listening to a lecture and he said 6 million. And he's talking about the death toll in Kurukshetra. And one devotee says, 600 million? You mean Srila Prabhupada? Srila Prabhupada said, huh? He says, you wrote in Bhagavad Gita and earlier in Srimad Bhagavatam, they said 600 million. Srila Prabhupada said, so it's a matter of a few zeros. And then Srila Prabhupada says, at any rate, so many people died. So whether it's 6 million, whether it's 640 million, right? And now we might be thinking, we're like, phew, but there's a huge difference between 6 million and 600 million. Can our brains really fathom that many people? Once we get up into millions of people, it's not fathomable to look at even. So all in all, a lot of people, so many people, more people than this pandemic, more people than so many of the wars that we've seen. He's looking and he's saying, I'm responsible for the deaths of millions of people. Some personally and directly and some indirectly. Then they were saying there were over 100,000 others still missing. This is the kingdom that he's now inherited. Go on, now rule. And now Yudhishthira is saying, as any person with a conscience, with a soul, how? How can I look at this death toll, at all of these widows, at all of these orphans, at these people, and they're now looking at me saying, okay, now what? Now what? How will you take responsibility for all of this? He says, I can't. He's devastated, almost mad with grief, and understandably so. If any of us had been even responsible for, just say, we get responsible for the death of one person, 2, 3 people. Say within a hypothetical sense, you get this virus, Krishna forbid, and it doesn't affect you. But all the 5, 10 people around you are all gone. Imagine just living with the grief of that. One person. Living with the grief and the burden of all of that. Millions of people? How does one wrap their mind around it? And Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is right there. And Yudhishthira is asking him, what do? I can't do this. Better that I go to the forest, give up my life. I can't. And Krishna has given him such good advice. I can't, though. I still cannot wrap my mind around it. Fine. Krishna says, no problem. I know exactly where we can go. Let's talk to one of the greatest warriors and leaders of our time. The people that we might think, well, you were wrong, and you were wrong, and you were wrong, and you were wrong. Then Krishna says, and now I've decided, let's glorify them. Krishna's made this decision. It's really simple, really easy to look at personalities like Ravan say, well, they were bad. That's why they died. Duh. But then also, the minute we say, but Ravan was also a really good Brahmin, really cool devotee of Lord Shiva. His Shiva Tandava Stotram is sung even today by devotees of Lord Shiva, composed by a demon. What do we do with that? This is where my Guru Maharaj, he often quotes from the Bible and so many spiritual practices where they say, hate the sin, but not the sinner. And, you know, when we think about that, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj has also said this, but like when we think about it, theoretically, like, oh, yeah, no problem. Sure, fine. But when it comes to practical application, when we look at this in the battlefields of our lives, and we're looking at, you know, people who have done us wrong, our communities wrong, the people around us, they've done us wrong. How do we sit there and we say, okay, no problem. Hate the sin, but not the sinner. What does that mean? We have to somehow fix our minds on Krishna. Like Bhishma, who willingly, because for great souls, when they make their appearance, even it's been said by metaphysical philosophers that every single soul makes an agreement when they take a body. It's said that we make an agreement, even in Srimad Bhagavatam, speaks about the soul within the womb. And the soul within the womb is fully conscious of a lot of things, past, present. When the soul is in the womb, we offer up so many promises. Oh, Krishna, if you just protect me, I'll love you till the end of time. Oh, Krishna, if you just protect me, I promise I will serve you. So in my family, whenever children are first born, whenever we have like a festival for a baby shower, or we make a video for a mother and a child, one of the things that we've taken to saying to the child is, remember your promise. One of the things that we've taken to whispering in the ear of children when they first got, like in my family now, when children first get there, the baby's first born, and they let the mother hold the child and all these things, we've taken to whispering, remember your promise. Because you're not so far away from when you made that agreement, when you were knowledgeable of so many things. Hard part is when we start to forget. So it's said that every soul makes a contract. We sign up for things. We agree to certain things. So these great souls, Bhishma Dev, they sign up for this. They make a contract. Sure. Okay. So now, like Bhishma, who has willingly taken on the path of his life, mistakes or not, as a contract, to be a teacher, not just for Yudhishthir, not just for all of the Kauravas 5,000 years ago, but for all of us now. A teacher till the end of time, teaching us how to fix our minds on Krishna, whether we're facing political strife, whether we are facing emotional turmoil, whether we are even looking at it going, I have no idea what the right decision is in this situation. Yudhishthira is saying, I have no idea what the right decision is in this situation. But he gets to fix his mind on Krishna, and he says, Krishna, tell me how to move. Show me which way to go. I feel like this is the lesson of Bhishma Dev. No matter what, even sometimes when it looks like everyone is against us and we are on the wrong side of things and thinking, how in the world did I get here? linked up to this. Like, how did I hitch my horse to this cart? What is happening? We can always, always fix our minds on Sri Krishna, who never leaves us. Sri Krishna, who is having miraculous interactions with us. Interactions that we can remember. If we write it down, we can remember every detail. How did Krishna look in that moment? He looked like mercy. What did Krishna look like in that moment? He looked like grace. So we can remember how Krishna looked, just like Bhishma. And we can ask for guidance. And Krishna will show us the way. He'll show us our community. He'll show us our spiritual companions. And he will never, ever, ever forsake us. Even if we're wrong. And we will be at some point. Prahlad Maharaj says we're prone to all of those defects. We are prone to making mistakes. It's a characteristic of an embodied soul. If we're a soul in a body, no matter how we are identifying with this body, we're going to make a mistake. We're going to lie at some point. Despite some of our best intentions, these things happen. But what I love is that Krishna never leaves us. He never says, you're too far gone. That's it. I can't. If you'd have worshiped me 5 minutes ago, it would have been great. But now, no deal. Instead, Krishna says, just whatever little bit you give me, no problem. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, whatever you give in charity, whatever you think, do that as an offering unto me. I'll take care of the rest. I promise. Srila Prabhupada says, even if a drunkard, right, somebody addicted to alcohol, begins thinking, but Krishna has given the intoxicating taste to this liquor. He says, slowly but surely, that person will find themselves delivered. So we have promises not only from Sri Krishna, but from Srila Prabhupada, our grandfather. These are the promises of our ancestors. We should put our faith and our devotion in those promises 100%. And we can draw upon the power of those promises because we're going to need it. This world is not stopping. This Kali Yuga is not stopping, nor is it slowing down. And it's characterized by being an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. It's everywhere. It's not going to slow down. It's even going to be in spiritual communities. It's not that we think, oh, just because I'm in a spiritual community and I know about Krishna and that person knows about Krishna, that everything's going to be smooth sailing. This world is characterized by quarrel and hypocrisy and lying and cheating and stealing. So we'd be foolish to think it's not going to happen here. It absolutely is going to happen here. Bhishma knew about Krishna. Duryodhana knew about Krishna. There were so many times, so many people were like, he's God. And Duryodhana said, okay, fine. But right now, what's he going to do about it? If I do what I want to do right now, what is he going to do about it? I want to see it. Let's try it. So it's not just that I know about God and they know about God, and so everybody, it should be fine. It's going to happen in our spiritual communities. What do we do when it happens? Do we fix our minds on Krishna? Do we draw on the power and the promises and the guidance of our spiritual ancestors? Do we try and come together and try and figure out, okay, how do we move forward? How do we continue to love Krishna despite all of this, in spite of all of this? Sometimes those in the managerial position, their job is also now to help the person remember their promise and reclaim their loving service for Krishna. So they have to take on a whole bunch of other responsibilities. For me, I get to look at it and just say, but how can I continue to be Krishna conscious? How can I continue to look at this and still love Krishna? No matter what they do, it's not my business. My business is to try and remember that same Krishna who the gopis went mad in ecstasy for. That same Krishna that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I will willingly go crazy for. That same Krishna who lovingly appeared on a battlefield to glorify his devotee, who had lived a really full life with activities that didn't always look so Krishna conscious. My business is to remember what Krishna looks like when he shows up in my life. So I hope and pray that we read this chapter over and over again. Whether we start from the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 10 times, 20 times, and that's why we're reading it, or we just read it because it's a good chapter filled with really, really beautiful lessons. My prayer is that we read it again and again, and we imbibe those lessons again and again, because Shri Krishna says, any little bit counts. You never lose it. So whether you finish Srimad Bhagavatam or you just memorize this chapter, Krishna says, Srila Prabhupada promises, you memorize one verse, one verse, one line, one sentence, one word. You memorize it, I'll deliver you. This is the glory of our Krishna, the glory of our spiritual ancestors. This is the glory of our heritage. Thank you so much for being with me and allowing me to tell stories and connect with all of you from all over the world. Literally, thank you. First time I'm meeting some of you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, so much. So nice to see you and listen to your wonderful class and narrations. It's nice to see you. We hope to see you again. We have some questions.
Yes, please.
Coming in. So my first question personally is Bhishma Dev on the deathbed is meditating on the gopis.
Yeah.
So I want to refer you to our philosophy that speak about we shouldn't meditate on the female form. So he's leaving the body. Instead of meditating on Krishna or sadhus or sages, he's meditating on women. Of course, they're pure devotees, of course. But I want to bring it down to our level of some preachers who feel that brahmachari or devotee shouldn't look at a woman's face or whatever they do. But this is a Mahajan. What example is he giving us? Because a neophyte devotee can say, oh, I'm looking at beautiful girls because they are devotees. Bhishma did it. So how can we understand this relationship?
Yeah. That's such a good question. And in speaking about the life of Bhishma, I've often gotten the comment from brahmacharis who are really proud of their brahmacharya. They're like, yes, talking about Bhishma, lifelong brahmachari, and they've kind of taken on this idea that, but that's the way to go. And that's the only way to go. But like you said, at the end of his life, what does he meditate on? These most simplistic, They weren't PhDs. They were not rocket scientists. They were cowherd women. Gopis. And they did not build elaborate kingdoms in their lives. They stayed in their villages. They churned butter. They went about their work every day. And their biggest and the most glorified achievement is they surrounded their lives with loving Krishna. So, we can think, but when we bring it down to our level, which I really do love, like, what if we take all of this out of the elevated language and we bring it down? This is a man who has sworn his life to a kingdom, no wife, no family, no children, no nothing. And at the end of his life, he's thinking about girls. What do we do with that? It doesn't make any sense from a materialistic standpoint. And that's why, in my family, we're always encouraged, like, to start thinking outside of this material identification, because spirituality is not going to make sense. And the minute you start to think, okay, now this makes sense, then you come across a verse or a passage that reminds you that Krishna is inconceivable. Duryodhana was a murderer. He was a molester. There is absolutely no reason that Balaram, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada said, they're both Supreme Personality of Godhead. Main difference, little color difference. Right? There is absolutely no reason that the Supreme Personality of Godhead should ever be siding with a murderer and a molester. And Balaram says, I'm going to teach you mace, weaponry. You're going to be my favorite disciple. I'm going to love you. Even when you're sitting there at the end of your life, I'm going to chastise the devotee for breaking the rules that Krishna told him to break. Balaram is ready to curse Bhima. He's ready to fight with Bhima. He says, you want to break the rules? No problem. You want to really fight with a mace? Go fight me. How could you have done this? He's my person. This is my student. Whoa. And then Bhima's like, he's a murderer. He murdered several people in my family. I saw it. What's happening here? He tried to molest my wife. And you're saying he's your person? Bhishma, my Guru Maharaj loves to quote, Mahajana Yena Gata Sapanta, right? Following in the footsteps of the great Mahajans, of which, like you said, Bhishma is one. How do we reconcile this? How is it going to make sense? Except to know that Krishna doesn't make sense. And just when you think Krishna is going to make sense, he does something else inconceivable. My Guru Maharaj often points out, he says, he gets the question asked a lot. Can God create a mountain that he cannot lift? My Guru Maharaj likes to say yes, and then he'll lift it. Because that's Krishna. So now at the end of his life, from a material standpoint, we can look at this and say, this is kind of pervy, it's like a little bit like, it's kind of weird that your whole life, you were all about weapons and warfare and politics and strategy. And now, where'd these girls come from? But what I love about this chapter is that Bhishma is a warrior. But when he comes in contact with Krishna, when Krishna is standing before him, there's poetry. Beautiful poetry just starts flowing. And this actually happens a few times within Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like whenever Krishna gets in front of somebody, he frees all of these kings and they begin poetically glorifying Sri Krishna. He makes poets out of kings and saints and sinners. This is Krishna. On the adverse side, we can think, you know what? The lives of the Mahajans are meant to be followed, but you know what? That's not for me. I'm going to pick and choose. So then you have great kings like Maharaj Bharat, right? He goes to the forest. I'm not going to have any distractions. He was a family man, but he says, you know what? Now is not the time for that. I'm going to give it out all up, meditate on the supreme form and the Lord alone. And then in comes a deer. He gives all of his love and affection to the deer. At the end of his life, he winds up meditating on his affection for the deer, calling out, hey, oh wait, where did the deer go? The deer runs away one day. Oh no, and then he dies. And then he becomes a deer. How does that work? This has sometimes within our spiritual community now taken the form of no one should love any animals ever, except maybe a cow, because Krishna loved those, so that's okay. 2 points. One, did we know Krishna had loads of pets, which included 2 dogs, like a swan, several parrots, a deer. So if we want to talk about the animals that Krishna loved, he loved them all. He had loads of pets, goats, all kinds of things in Vrindavan. The second thing is, my Guru Maharaj likes to point out that Maharaj Bharat's problem was not his association with the deer. It was that he lacked a spiritual community to keep him on the path. And that spiritual community would have said, wait, Bharat, like, it's fine if you have the deer, but don't get too sidetracked. Wait, what's happening? At the end of your life, remember your promise. We'll take care of the deer, don't worry. But you focus on what's necessary. You remember your promise. So if we somehow remember that these women were not just women, it's ice cream truck confirmation. These women were not just women, but they were also Mahajans, meant to be followed, who gave their entire existence to Krishna. Similarly, there's a story of the wives of the Brahmins in Vrindavan. So we say everything in Vrindavan works because everybody was working there just to make Krishna happy. There are Brahmins who are performing sacrifices. These sacrifices are meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Supreme Personality of Godhead is tending cows, jumping through the forest happily. All of his friends are hungry. They say, oh, those Brahmins, they have loads of food. Krishna actually tells him, he says, don't go to them. If you do, though, don't mention my name. These Brahmins might think that I have no caste. Mention Balaram's name. Balaram comes from a very respectable family. These Brahmins might give in charity, but I don't think you should go to them. I don't think they're going to give you what you want. They go, they say, my friend Krishna is hungry, Krishna and Balaram. These Brahmins say, we're doing important jobs. Okay? We can't stop to worry about your little friend. Go on now, go play.
I play football.
Yeah, with your frivolous games. So they have to go back and they go to Krishna and now they're heartbroken. What do we do? Heartbroken and hungry. He says, I told you. Go to the wives of the Brahmins. They'll understand. The wives of the Brahmins even hear that they're coming for Krishna and immediately they're going. The husbands say, hey, we've got important things. Don't you dare step out of this house. If you step out of this house, all ruination will come. And they're like, listen, if I don't give this food to Krishna, all ruination will come. I'm out of here. And so Srila Prabhupada says that sometimes within a woman's body, we've been granted this desire. It comes with sometimes an intrinsic nature to want to give our all, to really want to give everything we've got. That heart of surrender, wanting to do something for someone else. We give all of that to Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada will say, sometimes you'll see at spiritual gatherings, the crowd is filled. It's like 2/3 women, and then there's 1/3 of the men. But now Bhishma is saying, he's like, but you know what? I want to fix my mind on those people who gave everything to my supreme person. And over and above all of these warriors, I can only think of one group of people who were willing to go to hell if it meant making Krishna happy, who were willing to give up their lives if it meant pleasing Krishna. Whatever Krishna asked at any moment, they were willing to give it. Those are the gopis. This is what we follow. At the end of my life, if I want to meditate on where I want to go, what do we want? We want those people who are willing to give anything for Krishna, because Krishna will give anything for us.
Thank you. Such a nice answer. Our next question is coming from Sadev Prabhu. Sadev, please unmute. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Acyuta Gopi. Thank you. We hope to have your association from time to time.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, your class is so beautiful, and because it's so beautiful, it also generates lots of questions. And I have few questions for you, but I think I'll go for what I think it's probably the most complicated for me to understand. So it's one question, but it has like maybe 2 or 3 questions embedded in it. It's a question of apes. So my question is, the previous verse, it was said that all the soldiers that died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they all attained their original Swarupa. Even those who did not recognize Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as long as they died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, seeing Krishna, they attained the original Swarup form. And likening that to your narration about Duryodhana, similarly an evil person, is also an eternal associate of the Lord. So my question is, does that mean that every single individual that partook in the battlefield of Kurukshetra were already liberated souls that came down here to enact this pastime? And if that is the case, then what is our chance as ordinary souls that if we do as these great personalities did, we stand the chance of going back home in this lifetime? And if the people who all died were, some of them were not already eternal associates, then what made certain few of such not liberated souls get the opportunity to partake in such feat and be able to go back home after leaving their bodies? Hare Krishna. It's a bit ifs, but I hope you understood my question. Thank you.
Yeah. I like this question. So what's funny is the question is almost kind of answered already. When you were asking, if we are able, what is the chance for ordinary souls like us then to go back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime? What does that phrase really mean? Back home, back to Godhead. Every single living entity originated somewhere else. Home. That spiritual abode where Krishna is there, where all of his associates are there, where we are there. And we all have an original, unbreakable, unvanquishable relationship with Krishna. Also, within that first canto, Srila Prabhupada has said this. Every living entity has an unbreakable relationship with Krishna that can never be vanquished. Which means that we all must have been associates at one time or another. It said when Krishna glances over material nature, right? Before all of the creation is established, after disillusions, Krishna glances over material creation and reawakens the jiva. Reawaken. Our goal as spiritualists within this bhakti tradition, when we look at Krishna consciousness, is to reestablish our connection with Krishna. This idea of yoga is reunion, right? Not just a union, but also reunion. So if we look at all of these reestablishing our connection, this reunion with Krishna, go back home, back to Godhead, then it's already there. We already have a connection with Krishna. Krishna speaks as much to us in Bhagavad Gita as he does to Arjuna. Right? We understand that Arjuna is asking these questions not because he's completely in ignorance, but because of the benefit of all of us. So that for time immemorial, these answers are there and these promises are there. It says, many, many births you and I have both taken. You can't remember them, but I can. We have that Paramatma who's forever within our heart, has never left us. But while we're traversing this place here. So yeah, it's absolutely possible. Srila Prabhupada begs us to make it possible. So many times Srila Prabhupada says, you just give this one life to Krishna. You'll go back home, back to Godhead. I'll handle it, I promise. So many famous lectures, Srila Prabhupada said, he starts like, you become 90% sincere, 80% sincere, 70% sincere, 75%. We get into the 60, 65%, which in some cases, if you were to get that much on a test, it would barely be passing, let alone graduating with honors, right? If you get 65% on a test, my mom would have killed me. But now Srila Prabhupada says, you just become that much sincere. I'll handle the rest. Don't worry. And that's just a matter of sincerity. That's an internal thing that nobody else can even see. In looking at this, I also thought about, it came up with the burning of Kandava forest. Krishna and Arjuna go within this Mahabharata and there's a great Kandava forest and they burn it to the ground to satisfy Agni. But there are so many animals and living entities that are living there. Loads of them die, but they all attain liberation because Krishna was there. So I often have looked at this battlefield analogy and I've looked at that same verse and it's like, okay, they all achieved. Even the demons in Vrindavan, they achieved. And so, I think about it and sometimes I am wondering in my life, like when I find myself at a place where I don't know which way to go and I think, but am I, like everybody's fighting, but am I a Pandava or am I just soldier number 45? Which one does this make me?
100.
Right? Do I get to be a Pandava or am I just Soldier number 45. But that's a matter of my ego. Does it matter if soldier 45 actually saw Krishna and surrendered to Krishna? Then it doesn't matter. If soldier 45 saw Krishna, surrendered to Krishna, the result is there. Whether we think we are a personal instrument or we're an extra. Krishna has given liberation. He has given his supreme eternal abode to people who have just gotten hit with a Govardhan Shila. There are so many prayers where it says, for someone who just recites or remembers or hears this prayer, they achieve the supreme abode of Goloka Vrindavan. So, in our minds, we can think, but is that really possible? Did it really happen like that? Are they all really eternal associates? Then we look at where we're putting our faith. Yes. Yes, it's possible. Yes, it happened like that. Yes, absolutely, it can be that way. Yes to all of it. Which then, when I look at the news, there were days when I would look and I would say, very few people like Donald Trump. And yet and still there's a Paramatma in this man's heart. That man? You mean to tell me?
I love the man. He's my best president. I'm a Republican.
You mean to tell me, though, that there's a Paramatma in that man's heart? The answer is yes. Yes, there is. He might not be communicating with that Paramatma. He might not be realizing that that Paramatma is even there. But there's still one there. Hiranyakashipu was so upset after the death of his brother Hiranyaksha that he was deciding he was going to chase Varahadev all around material creation. Varahadev runs. Why does God run? Because God says, well, it's not time. So we've got to buy some time. So he runs all over material creation. Finally, Varaha says, well, I have to do something. This demon is too determined. I must take a hiding place. Varahadev says, I'll hide where he'll never think to look for me. And then it says that the Lord entered the demon's heart. And Hiranyakashipu never saw him. So there's a Krishna there. Whether we never acknowledge his presence or not, there's still a Krishna there, willing, waiting, ready to love that person. So yes, it's possible. It's even possible for these kinds of liberation and these kinds of amazing spiritual, metaphysical things and all of these opulences to happen, even while we're in this body. It's said that when the gopis saw Uddhava, they understood that he had already attained Sarupya Mukti, having a form the same as the Lord, while he was already in that body. Uddhava looked exactly like Krishna. And so it was understood by them that he had already attained that specific liberation. And yet, and still, he was still doing things, still acting, still going through that life, because there was something more. There was something more than just that liberation. There was something more than just being free of the material pangs. Something more than just being free of the miseries. There was something more. There was love to be had and love to be experienced. And then greater and greater degrees of love. So yes, absolutely. Just seeing the Lord, yes, they attained it. Yes, we can attain it. But there's even more. It's like when you get at the end of a game show and they're like, but wait, there's more. You know, it's like for the low price of just a little bit of faith. Nityananda Prabhu says, just a little faith. I'll give you what all of the great teachers have sought after for millenniums. Not just the liberation, not just the mystic perfections, because you'll get that. No problem, it will come. But there's a love and an exchange of love that becomes deeper and deeper and greater the more that we start to think, wait a second, it's not just about me. It's about my relationship with this person, with this Krishna, who has been actively reciprocating with my relationship, even though I've forgotten him. Which is why, even if we look at Bhishma Dev, he doesn't just stop there. There's a realization of liberation in the previous verse, but Bhishma doesn't stop there. His realization goes even deeper. Now let me meditate on the form that the gopis loved, because there was something there. There was some magic that happened there. I want to figure out that magic. I want to get that magic. So yes, it's all possible. And I pray that we make it a reality. Let's get out of here as quickly as possible. Let's reclaim our eternal positions. But there's always more. Let's figure out this mystery of loving Krishna as we get out.
Thank you. Such a deep answer. I have another question for you. In the course of the lecture, you made mention about the COVID, the virus, that we can meditate, think about if one had the virus and 5 people passed on, the thought of that. So I was having some argument on Facebook with some devotees, where a senior devotee, particularly a sannyasi, either by joke or seriousness, said that Krishna has incarnated as the virus. Many devotees got offended because the virus has taken so many great devotees. So my question is, as you're living in the US, what is your take on the virus? Can you take the vaccine or can you not take the vaccine to save lives?
There are so many unlimited paths. From giving lectures, which was a new thing. This was not much, at the beginning of last year, lecture, or 2020, the forgotten year, lectures was not my plan. I can honestly say this was Govinda's plan. I was happy. It's like, there's kirtan, it's deity worship, no problem, I'm good. And then Krishna said, you know what? Let's change things around. So can we say that the Lord is incarnated? Can we say that he hasn't? When Krishna says, I'm within every atom, can we take that to mean only the good ones? When Krishna says, I am eternal time, and I'm gradually destroying everything that there is, do we take that to mean only the favorable things that we want in our lives? When Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you should know that everything, good or bad, favorable or unfavorable, victory or defeat, finds its origin within me. Do we then say, my purport is, it's only the things that are comfortable for me? No, we can't. We have to look at it and say, even the things that are inconvenient, the things that are uncomfortable, even the things that are painful, where can I find Krishna? Where can I find Krishna's loving mercy? Because that's what I think that we tend to forget in all of this, that even if Krishna is incarnated in an unfavorable situation, he is still who he is, merciful and loving. So where is the loving mercy in that? Do we follow Srila Prabhupada, who said, don't be foolish and put yourself in harm's way? Do we follow Srila Prabhupada, who also said, We give everything for Krishna. Do we really look at ourselves? Because that's what I really do think that this comes down to. I think it comes down to taking a really incredible, honest look at ourselves. Whether we think, you know what? I don't need any of these precautions. I don't need it. My life is for Krishna. Are we walking the talk? Is it really? Have we renounced everything? Or do we still think, well, I can't see, so I'm wearing glasses? Do we still think, well, I do things to further my seva? So then you have to look at yourself and think, does this further my seva? Does this further the seva of other people around me? Am I living near other people? If not, then maybe it's not a question for you. Maybe you don't live around other people at all. Maybe you don't wear glasses. Maybe we have found a way, like Bilvamangala Thakur, to say, I can renounce my eyesight. If it doesn't work, pluck them out. Bilvamangala Thakur was looking and saying, my eyes, they're constantly drawing my mind from the glorious form of Shri Krishna and from my spiritual life. Better I do without them. And so he plucked his own eyes out, graphically, intensely. But this is a man that was going to live for his spiritual practice. Are we? Or are we saying it's a process? And I have to acknowledge realistically where I am on the process. So no longer, because like I said, I'm not in a managerial position. So I don't have to make these decisions on a wide scale. But I do have to look internally at myself and say, am I actually walking that path? Am I saying, I am going to fully depend on Krishna like Srivas Thakur, which means he would clap 3 times. And whatever it was, in 3 days, it would either come or he wouldn't need it. Whatever was needed, it would either come or he didn't need it. That level of surrender intrigued Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who came and said, well, wait, are you really living by this? What about if food comes or doesn't come? He says, Mahaprabhu, my Lord, I have never been let down by this process. I increase my japa. 3 days, I depend on Krishna. Whatever is necessary, his mercy, it comes. Mahaprabhu said, okay, but humor me. What if it doesn't come? Srivas said, I am willing to bet my life on this. If it doesn't work, 3 days, I'll drown myself in the Ganga. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no way. Okay, no problem. I give you the benediction that it will always work for you. You will never see a lack of abundance. And he didn't. Srivas was actually quite wealthy. He had a mansion, which his whole family lived in. So are we actually doing that? Are we thinking, fine, clap 3 times, whatever. In 3 days, if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, I don't need it. And if I'm tested, I'm willing to throw myself off the Brooklyn Bridge, no problem. I know I'm not. I'm not that surrendered. And it's okay to be honest. And if I'm not that surrendered, then I have to look at what my position is, what my take is. And then I have to look at how can I find Krishna in this situation. So sometimes for some people, they might be wondering, do I take this vaccine? Do I not take the vaccine? We started with this, that Krishna can guide all of the living entities. So if we have a question, if we have a problem that requires a decision, have we invited Krishna in as our counselor and our advisor? Oh, Govinda, I now invite you into my life. I can't take this decision on my own. It will affect not only me, but loads of people around me, right or wrong. So you come, you advise me. We make that prayer. We increase our japa, and then we listen out for Krishna. And then if the opposition comes, when the opposition comes, because this is Kali Yuga, opposition will always come. When the opposition comes, we stand firm in our faith. I did the best I could. I took Krishna's advice. I took counsel from my Govinda. I increased my japa. And then I followed what Krishna was able to impart from within the heart. Because there's no reason that Krishna would say, I am seated within everyone's heart, and from me comes all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, if he wasn't willing and ready to give it. Srila Prabhupada says, now we make ourselves fit to speak with him. He's been ready to talk to us from the beginning. There should be no doubting that. Now we have to have faith. We have to put our faith in our japa. We have to really call upon our Krishna. We have to really call upon it. And I guarantee you, he will make his message really clear. For some people, it might be. He might give the message. Hold off for a second. For some people, he might give the message loud and clear. Your immune system is horrible. You should do all precautions. Take the precautions. But that's not for me to decide. I can't decide that, Prabhuji, your immune system requires this. I don't know your immune system. Right? Yeah. So everybody's spiritual path is going to look a little bit different. And Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita shows everybody's path is different.
Yeah, but as an organization, this topic is really tearing the movement apart. Yes or no, or around the world, temples.
Yeah.
So how do we come out of this difficult situation as a congregation? Because some people feel if you don't take it, you are a risk, danger to other devotees. See what happened in Mayapur when Pagajanga Prabhu left the body. It was that devotees deliberately give him that. So it's really not an easy situation presently. But for me personally, I feel everybody should take the vaccine actually, but not in management. Because when you remember people who left the body, Bhakti Swami, Pagajana Prabhu, and others, it's really painful.
It is, isn't
For
it?
somebody to give a lecture and openly tell us Krishna incarnated as the virus, how do you want us to feel?
Yeah, my Guru Maharaj, he really, really sweetly said one time that sometimes all of our philosophy is not meant to tell people who are struggling and suffering, it's your karma, you'll be all right. Be more tolerant. Tolerate. The philosophy is actually, it's not meant for that at all. Our philosophy should be uplifting us. Absolutely, yes. Within our communities, within those intimate sanghas, where we are coming together and saying, how do we deal with this? We can say amongst each other, but you know what? Krishna is in everything. So I can't say that it was their time, but Krishna makes this executive decision. And then he says, I'm taking my devotees back. Now, as for the why and the who and the what and the where and all these things, that's for our intimate sanghas. When we are saying within ourselves about karma and about divine arrangement and about Krishna as time, and ultimately he is the destruction of everything. But when people are grieving, it is much more difficult. My Guru Maharaj is saying that this is not what our philosophy is for. It's for when people are grieving, to tell them to get over it. It's quite divisive. But the dice match was also pretty divisive. If we look at that dice match, there were people on so many different sides. Yudhishthira should have just shut up and sat down from the beginning. Yudhishthira should have done something different. Yudhishthira, why did you continue playing? Everybody was on different sides, isn't it? Even in that courtroom. Even that assembly hall, so many people were on so many different sides. And so many people in that assembly knew of Krishna. if this is what happens when Krishna is on the planet, personally present.
What's happening now?
Yeah. How can we expect it's going to be better? Right? Like, how can we expect? We should be better than that. Better than what? Bhishma Dev, our Mahajan, who was in a quandary saying, I don't even know what to do with you. I don't know what to do in this situation. If I stay silent, it's a problem. If I speak up, it's a problem. He was torn. He's like, my hands are tied. And people now to this day say, Bhishma, but you were wrong. You should have stood up. You should have spoken. Even Krishna. Krishna gave him what for? He gave him the sauce a little bit. This war is happening because you didn't say anything. You're an elder. If you would have taken an active decision, this could have been averted. Same Krishna who also then smiles at him and says, no problem. You fix your mind on me, I'll come for you. No problem. So yes, there are going to be divisions. There are going to be arguments. There are going to be polar opposite sides and people looking at things from totally different standpoints. And somehow they all know Krishna, even within our spiritual communities. So what do? We have to find those like-minded people. We have to try and let it not destroy our Krishna consciousness. We have to try and be able to remember that people are going to make their decisions. And those decisions are not always going to look great from the outside. Duryodhana's decisions did not look good. None of them look, even Yudhishthira's decision didn't look good. Me personally, I was more of a fan of like, Bhima, Arjuna, and the other, like, I was just reflecting on it this morning thinking, I wasn't always so much of a fan of Yudhishthira. He had a different mindset. He had a different way of going about things. And yet, he's still a great devotee. So we have to look at these divisive things and understand that on the nature of being a devotee, somebody can be a devotee and have a different view materialistically. And now somehow we're like, yeah, but the material and the spiritual view seem to be merging. Because when it's about lives, that happens. They start to merge and the water gets really muddy. I was just reading one of the introductions to one of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's books, and he was so perfectly saying, he's saying, we look at all of these divisive things within our community, within the world, and we think, what kind of God would let this happen? Now we have devotees arguing with devotees. Now devotees canceling other devotees who never want to speak to that devotee again. What kind of Krishna would let this happen? What kind of a world is this that this happens in? Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said, the world that's not real. This is not our home. If we get too comfortable here, we'll forget. We will forget. Even in spiritual communities, we will forget that this is a part of the journey. It is very real, right? Krishna does not tell Arjuna on the battlefield, look, bro, get over it. He understands this is real for you. This experience, even though we've passed so many lives, this lifetime, this experience is real. We've heard that this life is so much like a dream. But in a dream, you can pinch yourself and wake up. Here, you pinch yourself, it just hurts. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was saying, we will forget that there's something more. And so in order to keep us remembering that there is something more, this world's not going to be happy for long. There are going to be arguments. There's going to be division. There's going to be these polar opposites. How then do we find a way to understand, okay, that person's going to practice their Krishna consciousness over there. And I'm going to practice my Krishna consciousness over here, which is safer for my Krishna consciousness. And I'm going to find those like-minded individuals, right? I feel like this pandemic has taught us that the temples where we were is not the end of our spiritual community.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right? That there's a much greater spiritual community that we can now connect with, even across the world. We can find like-minded devotees. We can find devotees whose their lectures inspire our hearts more. They speak to our hearts more. And you know what? That's okay. That's actually perfectly okay. There are some Mahajans who we vibe with better than other Mahajans. That's okay. But I don't want it to destroy my Krishna consciousness, my faith in Krishna. But I can look at it and say, material world is showing itself again. We don't belong here. We have to go someplace else. And it's not to say that there won't be drama in the spiritual world. There is drama. Krishna loves drama. So he's going to make drama. But we remember that there's our group of people. Even between the gopis, they had groups. And they had groups of gopis that thought like them. And then there were other groups of gopis that did not think like them. And they did not mix. This is when we get into the deeper tattvas of rasabas and all this rasa and prema. And there were groups of gopis that did not mix, and that was okay. Spiritually, eternally, it's okay. So if you don't agree, it's okay. And if you don't mix with another devotee, it's okay. It's okay to let them practice over there. But we can't let this ruin our spiritual lives. We have to find each other, cling to each other and say, okay, we go together, then we're going to cling like nobody's business, because this is all we've got.
Thank you so much. We take one more question from Sahadev
Sure.
Prabhu. And we don't know how long time you have. This is 2 hours you've been speaking.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours, but we can do one more. Let's do it. I'm here.
Yeah, we'll do one more. Maybe Mother Vraja Lila can tell you this platform today, there's no question. So maybe your next class will give you more questions. Sahadev Prabhu, please.
Okay, Hare Krishna. But Acyuta, thank you so much for this very last answer you gave, because that answers one of dilemma I had with my then temple president, because another devotee had gone to report me to our president that, oh, Sahadev has girlfriends in town. That's why he's able to make so much Lakshmi. Not even girlfriend, friends, girlfriends. So I stayed away from this devotee. You know, you were saying that there is this popular saying, hate sin, but not the sinner. But what I try to do is, yes, of course, I do say I hate the sin, I do not hate the sinner. But what to speak of, if I say I hate the sin, but I dislike the sinner, because especially if whoever committed the sin or committed the improper thing continuously repeats committing the same offense over and over and over again. Come on, there got to be a time where you say enough is enough, you know. So, but I think that one you already took care of it. So my question is, these days, and probably since time immemorial, it's very difficult for someone to say, I love you. If I said to a lady that I love you, and I actually said that to one Mataji in Gita Nagri, a devotee, I said, oh, Mata, I love you so much. And she was so successful. Never, ever in my life has anybody approached me to tell me straight ahead, I love you. And of course, I'm a guy, and I'm not all that crazy, but I know how to woo a woman. If I wanted to woo this lady, I wouldn't have gone straight forward like that. But I just said I love you because of her devotional qualities. But this is how she misunderstood me to be, up to a point that you cannot say I love you. But it's also very important to just verbally say to someone that I love you. So in that case, what do? Because saying I love you to a woman, and even these days, a man to a man is also a problem. A woman to a woman is also a problem. So then how do we verbally say to someone that I love you? Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj also, he would say that he used to get in trouble because he would sign his letters, even to his disciples, I love you, with love. You know, it's interesting that we're in this bhakti tradition where the goal is prema, the highest exploration and manifestation of love. They're like, no, but don't tell anybody you love them. That's just crazy. Come on now. And we are in such a personal society, and it seems like the social goal is to become as impersonal as possible. Don't inquire about anybody's spiritual life. Don't really care about them. And that also goes along with your first question, even hating the sin and disliking the sinner. Yeah, that happens. Right? How many times have we seen it? Mahabharata is such a wonderful guidebook for life because Krishna was there. And how many times we get Ashwatthama, beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, we get Ashwatthama causing a slew of problems time after time. He just cannot stop throwing out a Brahmastra to destroy the world. And there's so many times. And then finally, you know, everybody's saying enough is enough. Like, I understand he's supposed to be, you know, son of a Brahmin, but enough is enough. And in essence, what Bhima says is, I hate that guy. And Krishna says, he's not wrong. And they're looking, and Draupadi's saying, but we shouldn't make his family suffer like I'm suffering. He looks, she's not wrong. So now what do we do when Krishna seems to be giving conflicting answers, you know? We try to handle our own issues. We try to ask him for guidance. He's looking, he's not wrong. She's not wrong. They're not wrong. Bhima says, he should be punished. Yes. Well, but what do we do? Because you know what? His mother's going to cry. His wife, everybody's going to be, yes. But he had faith in Arjuna. He had faith in Yudhishthira. He had faith in them that they were going to come to a possibility, an end result that was going to do both punish him and not kill him. And in the end, Krishna takes decisive action. He's like, no matter what happens to you, I invoke my own curse. You are forever afflicted. But my Lord, eternally? You live long enough. It'll feel like eternity. So Ashwatthama now has no community. Sometimes, like Krishna, when he decides to take those actions, what happens when you are banned from community? Big community. He has no one. It is said he sits in Vrindavan. He's hidden himself within Vrindavan. He's constantly afflicted by all of these diseases and issues. And he chants the holy name. Because even when you have no community, no friends, no one knows you, no one sees you, the holy name will still be your companion. So even Krishna, even if you dislike the sinner, which is very normal, right? I've taken to praying, and you know, because I've understood that there's a Paramatma in everybody's heart. I'm like, Krishna, come get your people. Krishna, handle your person. because me and this person, we're not vibing. But you can do the things. And it's not even, I'm not praying for them to have anything happen to them. But what I am praying is for Krishna. You have to handle your person because we can't coexist. This is not working out. So then how on the flip side, right? When it comes to disliking people, we have prayers for that. What about when it comes to loving other people? We've become a community. We've become a society that's so accustomed to somebody says, I love you. That eventually means I'd like to exploit you, lie to you, cheat you out of your most prized possessions, and leave you abandoned. So now what does that mean? What happens when we enter into a spiritual life? We're really reading, really chanting, and we see our spiritual companions and actually, I love this person. Not because I want anything from you, not because I want to exploit you, but I love these spiritual qualities. It actually shouldn't, it seems like a shame. It shouldn't be that you can be in a spiritual community for 30, 40 years and no one will say, I love you. So now maybe we have to put, we have to put the disclaimers on there, especially if you are in a managerial position or you are in a station in life where you happen to be a brahmachari, whatever the case is. We should be able to express to one another, you know what? I really have such an appreciation and a love for you, which means thank you for your service. That's it. I don't want anything else from you. Don't talk to me, but thank you for your service. Like, don't misunderstand. I absolutely do not want a relationship from you, but thank you for your service. So I've taken to saying, thank you for your service. Soldiers on battlefields, it's like one of the best things you can say to them. And over this pandemic, I've really looked and I've thought, but we're all soldiers. We are all on this battlefield. So I've taken to telling devotees, thank you for your service. Because for me, that's an expression of love. When I don't have all the words to say, I love you and this is why, thank you for your service. I appreciate your service so much. So Sadeh Prabhu, thank you for your service. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mother. You have a message on your chats, which is not for the class, it's a private message. So thank you so much. 2 hours has come and gone. So we request all devotees to unmute yourselves and let's chant Hare Krishna to Mother for coming. We look forward to having her again, maybe next month.
Haribon, I was kindly requesting if I can really ask a question, please.
Okay, please. Last words, please.
Huh?
You want to ask? What's your name? Where you calling from?
Well, my name is Manohar Bararam Das. I'm calling from Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Acyuta Mataji, for your kirtan and for your class. You're such an inspiration, especially to this side of Africa. My question is, my question is, it is stated in the, actually in the book, Srila Prabhupada Parampara book, that you should not use the name of the holy name for material gain. All right? Like you should not use the holy name for material gain. In either way, you should not use the holy name because it's a special name. You should only use holy name in spiritual. And then we had this, the COVID pandemic, and again we had kirtan and people were doing a lot of chanting and devotees were suffering so much due to the pandemic. So when was it, okay, I don't know how to put it, but was it an offense to do that, like to chant so that we can end the pandemic and to chant for other devotees? Was it an offense?
Here, I think, it depends on everybody's personal intention. When I look at it, because I engaged in loads of them, there were lots of online kirtans. You know, it seemed like everybody was having an online kirtan every week. Did I look at it as though this can eradicate a pandemic? Well, one, it can, because Hari Bhakti Vilas says there's no medicine like the holy name. And Sanatan Goswami gives so many beautiful poetic descriptions. There is no vow like the holy name. There is no yajna equal to the holy name. So many things like that. So can it eradicate a pandemic? Yeah. What are the chances of it completely eradicating a pandemic? Well, it's the material world. It's full of miseries. There's a characteristic of the material world. It's like, it even has like Sanskrit words for like pandemics and epidemics and all kinds of things. There are so many stories. Story of the Shaman Takajul. If you remember that story, if you listen to that story, if you hear those glories of Krishna, then wherever you are and wherever these glories are sung, there should never be any sign of famine, no sign of disease, no sign of pestilence, which is a fancy word for pandemic, epidemic. So this is the side effect of the glories of Sri Krishna. This is actually a side effect of the glories of the holy name. So can it? Yes, and maybe no, with time, right? So, you know, some people might look at it and go, oh, but it's still here. It didn't eradicate it. It's like, but it's a little bit different than it was. In some places, it's very different than when it was. And as we know, time keeps going, eradicates everything. Now, our minds, this is when the personal agendas start coming in. It's like, oh, but it didn't eradicate it for me at that very moment. Like, well, then Krishna is not our order supplier. So was it an offense? No, because a lot of the time I was doing kirtan anyway. Whatever name we've decided to put on it, I was doing kirtan. You know, we were going to do kirtan anyway. So here we are. More times to engage in kirtan, I think we should use every excuse and opportunity we can. There is a festival for everything in Krishna consciousness. At 3 months, give or take, Krishna turns over for the first time. Everyone in Vrindavan has a festival. I think, you know, Srila Prabhupada said every day can be a festival, and it should be. I think we should. I think, you know, it's like, you know what? There was a gray hair today that I noticed that wasn't there yesterday. We should do kirtan. Because why not? We should be filling our lives with kirtan as much as humanly possible. As for chanting with material desires or chanting without material desires, in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada, in a purport, he aptly states, he says, you know, pure devotees don't ask Krishna for anything. But if you have material desires, you had better only ask Krishna. It's like if we have a best friend or our parents and we want something really, really nice. And instead of asking our parents, we go to the auntie, the neighbor next door. The first question that we're going to get asked when we get that new thing, the parent goes, where did you get that from? At least this is what would happen for me. The parent goes, where did you get that? And I said, oh, you know, auntie, she gave it to me. She bought it for me next door. I'm like, and the parent goes, how did the auntie know you wanted that? And I said, well, I asked her. And then the parent says, why did you not ask me? What do you think? I can't give you what you need? What do you think? I wouldn't listen to you? Why wouldn't you ask me? My parent would feel offended, insulted. So in the same way, even though we know whatever it is that is within us, we have to be able to have such an open and vulnerable relationship with Krishna that we can ask our friend. And then we wait and see. Because Krishna then does what he wants. Like we tell him our things. Oh, Krishna, you know, sometimes it would be really nice if there was a new car It'd be really nice if there was so-and-so, if there was a new house, whatever it is. And then Krishna decides. There was one time I needed a new car. And I didn't really, but I want a new car. But then there's the hassle of looking for one and thinking about it. And what kind do you get and all this stuff? And what do you do with the old one? All these things. You ask Krishna. And then it was maybe 2-3 weeks. And all of a sudden I got a call, walked outside, and someone had hit the car. I wasn't in the car. Nobody was in the car. It was parked. A truck had hit the car and the car was totaled. And I had to get a new car. It wasn't exactly the most comfortable thing. It wasn't even like I was getting loads of insurance money. It was just I had to get a new car, but I already had to get one. So sometimes we think, oh, but you shouldn't ever ask Krishna for material desires. But what does Bhishma say? But Krishna already within the heart, already knowing what my desire was, appeared before me out of his own sweet will. So like Srivas Thakur, like Bhishma Dev, like all of our Mahajans, sometimes there is a need. Oh, Krishna, but we need this, we do need our lives to be able to live for you. So you got to help us. And then Krishna says, okay, let's see. He does what he wants. But I think personally, more kirtan is always a good thing. And if people say they want to chant for the pandemic, then I say keep chanting. Because Krishna is really it's a marathon. And he's going to see how long we last through the marathon. So the people that were only chanting so that they could get free from this pandemic, we'll see. Because they might stop chanting. Or the desire within the heart will change. Krishna will change the desire within the heart. And you think, I started this Hare Krishna stuff because I was in danger. But now somehow I feel like it's held with so many more areas of my life that now I just can't stop. It's stuck in my head. And that has also happened. So I feel like Krishna will take care of all the things that I can't see. But our job is to have that open, vulnerable relationship with him. Tell him everything. And then let him sort it out.
Thank you, Mother. Thank you so much for your answer. We have to let you rest. 2 hours, 20 minutes. Sorry for that long class. We are sorry.
No. Please have me back again. Please let me know.
Okay. I just sent you an email. So we ask all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves. Let's chant Hare Krishna to Mother for coming.
Acyuta, I can listen to you forever.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Thank you so much.
Acyuta Gopi ki jai.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare